Hello and welcome to our video presentation. Today, we shall focus on the electoral systems employed in the United Kingdom, where the distinct features of each system, their respective benefits as well as their weaknesses, and the further changes that could possibly be imposed into the current electoral system that may ensure a much fairer system will be discussed in detail. To begin, it is important to understand that unlike many other countries in the world, the UK's constitutional law adheres to a few significant doctrines, and understanding them may facilitate our understandings towards the UK Parliament as a big picture. Although some powers in the UK has been devolved to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the UK ultimately has a unitary system of government, meaning that most powers are centralized. One of the main principles practiced by the UK Parliament is parliamentary sovereignty. This means that the legislative body holds the most powerful power compared to all the other institutions in the government, including the judiciary and the executives, which makes them a supreme legal body. Therefore, the electoral system of a particular state has to be good and fair enough to ensure that the only most suitable candidates are elected into the parliament, as they are the ones who are responsible in making laws. A parliamentary democracy can be said to be a form of government where a popularly elected party in the parliament will then form the government, in which an indirect link between the governed and the government will be established. This is the form of democracy that is exercised by the United Kingdom, along with a constitutional monarch where a king or queen is the head of state and the head of government is the prime minister. The people, known as the electorates, vote in elections held in their states for members of parliament whom they believe are the best choice to represent them and hold the political office. According to the statute, it states for general election to be held on the first Thursday of May at 5 years intervals. This means that a prime minister can only hold political office for a maximum of 5 years. However, in theory, the dissolution of parliament lay within the prerogative of the crown, but now the House of Commons need to have 2/3 of majority agreeing, as it is now governed by the Act. It is of fundamental constitutional importance for 4 principles to be ensured in the electoral system, namely, a full enfranchisement of voters subject to limited restrictions, the fairness and legality are ensured in the regulation of the conduct of election campaigns, and the voting system that is used can help in the production of legislative body representative of the electorate and a sufficiently democratic supported government. Also, the Supreme Court held that, as nearly as it is practicable, one man's vote in a congressional election is to be worth as much as another's. This means that the value of each vote cast is equal to that of every other vote. A recent statute introduced greater flexibility, allowing registration once he or she is a resident in a constituency at any time, where the eligibility to vote depends on the citizenship, voting age which is above 18, not being subject to any legal incapacity, not serving prison terms, and not mental patients who are mandatorily detained. These criteria are important to ensure that the votes casted are pure, and it gives rise to the idea that citizens have a right to partake in the electoral process. A degree of permanence is not even required, which was sufficiently manifested by the women protesting at Greenham Common. Moving on to understanding what are general elections. A general election is where the people, being the political sovereign, have the chance to voice out their opinion and select whom they think are suitable to be members of the parliament, the legal sovereign. Such elections can assist a state in limiting the powers of the parliament, so they will not act ultra-vires, and most importantly, preserve the doctrine of the separation of powers in a constitution. The electoral system that is employed in the UK can be known as the first-past-the-post election method, where the major parties in the constituency nearly always win the seats of their heartlands. A voter just needs to put a cross next to the name of his or her preferred candidate, and the candidate who receives the most amount of votes wins. This system operates by dividing the nation into 650 constituencies in terms of population currently, each of which sends their representative to Parliament. The conduct of political parties and the establishment of an electoral commission is regulated by a statute for the electoral process to be supervised. The process of this system, alongside other systems, will be further deliberated later on in our presentation. Vernon Bordenau, in his own perception, had categorized the voting system into three parts, which includes the plurality system, which is a mixture of systems, the majority systems, and the proportional systems, which comprise of fairness. Each of the systems have their own unique style and concept into choosing the righteous members of parliament, which one may be more suitable in a continent than the other. Over the past few decades, many have been keeping their eye on the current electoral system in the UK, and questions such as whether the systems live up to its high ideals and whether it is the best system to be employed linger in the minds of the people.
Now I will proceed to discuss about the various electoral systems available and their respective procedure. First, the simple majority system, also known as first past the post. Simple majority system is one of the most famous and commonly used electoral systems worldwide, and is also the current system employed by the English government. The origin of the simple majority voting system lies in tradition. This system is not based on any matter of law, but rather it is a past political practice. The chief merit of this system lies within its simplicity. It works like this. The candidate who gains the largest number of votes in the election wins the seat, regardless of the proportion of votes casted by the constituencies. To illustrate this point, let us just say that the votes casted for individual candidates at an election are 100 for A, 90 for B, and 70 for C, with a total of 260 votes. A wins the election, even though 160 voters, or 61% of the voters, have voted for the other candidates. The next is alternative voting system. Next, we will talk about the alternative voting system. This majoritarian system maintains individual constituencies, yet introduces the notion of multiple votes in order of preferences, and is often mistaken for being a proportional representation system. Okay, so how this electoral system works is that, firstly, the system inquires for voters to rank the candidates in order of their preferences. Then the first preference votes are counted, and any candidate who receives votes more than 50% is elected automatically. Otherwise, the candidate with the least votes is eliminated, and their second choices are then allocated to the remaining candidates in a second round of counting. In the second round, if one candidate then has more than 50% of the votes, they will then be elected. Otherwise, the votes will be redistributed again, as mentioned before. The redistribution continues until one candidate finally has 50% or more of the vote in that round of counting, or when there are no more votes to be distributed. If someone votes for just one candidate, their vote will be counted once in each round that takes place, but any further preferences they could have seated will not be taken into account. Next, the supplementary voting system. The supplementary voting system is rather similar to the alternative voting system, and it is the system recommended by the Working Party on Electoral Systems set up by the Labour Party under the chairmanship of Lord Plant, which was reported in 1993. This system allows for voters to express preferences through voting for two candidates. If no candidate secures 50% of the vote, the second preferences casted for all candidates other than the top two are redistributed between the two leading candidates until a clear winner emerges. So now we'll talk about the single transferable vote system, which is also STV. This system offers both proportionality between votes and seats and a constituency-based but multi-member system of election. This system was recommended for introduction in urban constituencies as long ago as 1970. It offers both proportionality and the greatest range of choice to electors. The system used for local elections and elections to the European Parliament in Northern Ireland requires that the total number of votes be divided by 1 more than the number of vacant seats plus 1. The voter expresses his or her preferences for candidates in numerical order. A quota is predetermined. Thus, in a 5-member constituency, the quota will be approximate to 1/6 of the votes cast. Successful candidates are those reaching the quota, and those who on a redistribution of second, third and more remote preferences reach the quota. If fewer than the required number of candidates reach the quota figure, then redistribution of second preferences will take place until the required number of elected members is reached. If, on the other hand, the required number of elected members is not achieved by the redistribution of second preferences, then a third stage comes into play. The candidate who polls the lowest number of votes is eliminated, and the votes for that candidate is distributed among the other remaining candidates in order of preferences expressed. This process of elimination continues until the quota is reached and all 5 required elected members. Next, the party list system. Under this system, each political party has to nominate a list of candidates. The votes for each party's list are calculated on a nationwide basis rather than a constituency basis. And the parties obtain the number of seats in the legislature in direct proportion to the votes in the country. Next, the additional member system, which is known as the AMS system. This is the system adopted for elections to the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly. This system seeks to combine the advantages of a single-member constituency with an overall proportionality. Voters are given 2 ballots. On the first are the candidates from different parties and independents who are standing. The voter marks their preferred candidate to be their constituency representative. On the other are the parties who are standing. Each party will have published a list of candidates in advance. A vote for a party on the second ballot is a vote for their list of candidates. Under this system, each voter would thus have 2 votes, one for the candidate of his choice in the constituency and one for the party of his choice on a regional basis. We will now move on to the advantages and disadvantages of the respective electoral system, as well as comparing the FPTP system currently employed with the others.
We will first discuss the numerous advantages this voting system offers before comparing the various disadvantages it holds with the advantages of the other system. Firstly, the simple majority system is known as such due to its lack of complexity. It does not call for much guidance as the system is user-friendly. With its simplicity, it is not cost or time-consuming to administer in terms of counting the votes. Therefore, the result can be announced within a short period of time after the poll closes. It is also easier to determine who won in the election. Additionally, this system enables the parties who get the majority votes to sit in the parliament, which consequently produces a solid and decisive government. Moreover, this system allows the voters to clearly express a view on which party they think should form the next government, without having them to exercise preference which they may not have. Furthermore, with every voter represented by 1 member of parliament, it provides a clear democratic link between the people and the parliament. In other words, this system provides a direct relationship between the members of the legislature, the voters, and the local constituency. This means that the voters know who to refer to when they encounter problems or unhappy with the way they have been represented. This makes the MPs more accountable to the voters. The first-past-the-post system ultimately creates a 2-party system in the end, which is relatively ideal as it produces a single-party government. This shows that it will be easier to pass through a legislation without much disruption since they do not have to rely on support from other parties. Now we shall move on to the disadvantages of the first-past-the-post system, in which case we will compare the various disadvantages it fosters with the advantages of the other electoral systems to further emphasize the need for the United Kingdom to adopt the other electoral systems as their own in the current age.
The main criticism of the first-past-the-post system points to its unfairness. Discrepancies between votes cast and seats won are apparent, as party who gets the majority votes win the seats in the House of Commons even if they do not get more than 50% of the votes. In 1997, they gained 46 seats for 17% of the vote, while the Labour gained 418 seats for 43%, and the Conservative gained 165 seats with 31% of the vote. It is this glaring discrepancy between the seats and votes which has fueled the pressure for electoral reform. Subsequently, large number of votes are wasted, as votes casted in the constituency for the losing candidate, and as for the winning candidate, there is a minimum required number of votes that he has to garner, and any other votes casted after that percentage also counts for nothing. Also, the minority interests are represented badly, therefore an electoral reform is required in the United Kingdom. On the other hand, under the proportional representation, when more than one candidate with different politics are elected, there are more vote counts, hence there will be greater and wider representation of views, which will in turn reflect the interests of the minority and smaller parties. Next, the first-past-the-post system encourages tactical voting. Voters may not know which party they prefer, but may vote for one party due to their personal dislike towards the other candidates. Under the proportional representation, it is essential for voters to vote according to their preference from the first to the fourth. This is to ensure that the voters can still have a say in the process even if their favourite candidate is eliminated. The first-past-the-post can severely restrict a voter choice. Parties are not homogeneous and do not speak with one unified voice, as they are more of a collision of many different standpoints. Coalition can be established through the proportional representation system, which will then produce a wider representation in government and encourages consensus and compromising. Lastly, first-past-the-post system assists the government in gerrymandering, or in other words, manipulate the votes by boundaries that may help them ascertain certain political advantages. On the other hand, under proportional representation, the occurrence of gerrymandering is less of a significance. Proportional representation system may be a lot better than the first-past-the-post system. Nevertheless, this system still has several shortcomings. This system is more complex than the first-past-the-post system in relation to counting and also voting. It also does not create a two-party system, and they may lead to many smaller parties formed in the state. Lastly, the voters are also forced to exercise a preference which they may not have.
Additional member system is the system adopted for the 1999 elections to the Scottish Parliament and Welsh Assembly. It has the advantage of remaining close to the system which is currently in place, while departing from it sufficiently to ensure proportionality. The system would necessitate a reduction of the number of constituencies for the members of Parliament in order to accommodate the regionally elected members. If the division between constituencies and regional members is to be equal, this would necessitate doubling the size of current constituencies. The alternative system also has its own pros and cons. Here, the system fails from the point of view of proportional representation, since the overall results will bear little or no resemblance to proportionality. It would also potentially have the effect of returning to Parliament candidates who have achieved no clear support or mandate from the people. This system, however, ensures that within each constituency, the candidate with most support overall is returned to the Parliament. The advantage of the alternative votes are first,
that the traditional one member, one constituency principle is retained, and secondly, that the elected candidate has a majority of votes as compared with other candidates. The first past the post system is the voting system which is currently employed in the United Kingdom. Although it has been employed in the United Kingdom for many years, it cannot be said to be the most suitable electoral system since there are both advantages and disadvantages pertaining to its operation. So far, as recent as March 2017, there has been calls by the members of parliament to change the current first past the post system to a proportional representative system. The petition set out has been signed by more than 100,000 people. However, ministers sitting in the parliament are still skeptical and thinks that proportional voting system would weaken the direct constituency link, which is a key feature of their parliamentary system, and under a proportional system, the voting process is more complicated for the voters. In 1998, it was reported that there had been a favor of a mixed system termed AV+. The system would operate in such a way: the alternative vote system would be used to elect about 80 to 85% of the members who are representative of constituencies, whereas the remaining members would be elected through a regional list, which can in a way help the system achieve a significant degree of proportionality. The advantages of using the AV would firstly be the significant lessening of wasted votes. Secondly, the system would make way for more inclusive politics as it encourages candidates to pitch their campaign towards a majority of constituents instead of targeting a minority of the party's faithful. The third major advantage is that this system discourages candidates from intemperate attack on their rivals, as second and subsequent preferences may count. To top it off, the most substantial argument of all is that AV prevents the tendency to transfer powers from the voters to the deals of candidates. To sum it all up, we have to look at the representative democracy of a state, which can be said to be the most important measurement to determine the success of an electoral system. Furthermore, political consequences will arise from the choice of electoral system in a constituency that will take effect immediately in matters relating to the nature of representation, the party's campaigns, and the behavior of the voters. Every state has to have an electoral system fit for them in order for votes to be translated into seats, and the type of electoral system chosen has implications because different systems will definitely produce different outcomes. This proliferation of different proportional electoral systems shows that there are no best buy electoral system, but that it has to be tailored to fit the type of body which is being elected, its purpose and functions of the political context in which the elections take place. The concept of citizenship and participation depend on an effective electoral system. As Blackburn has observed, the crucial democratic link between politicians and people, or government and the governed, is the electoral system. The quality of that electoral system itself determines the quality of our democracy. Yet oddly, for many commentators in the UK, supreme authority has never resided in the people. In conclusion, we believe that it is time for the UK to move on from the first past the post system and consider the other methods of elections. The country can be said to be one of the most advanced among the others in the world, and excuses such as the complexity of systems can be taken into account but should not be seen as a huge obstacle. With Brexit being in place, the UK can use this opportunity to implement a different system to ensure that democracy is always a priority for its citizens.